Hello everyone, Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching. I have another Monday quarterback video for you. This video comes from Cowetta County, Georgia. There is no typical critical incident type of briefing format that follows with this. There's no spokesperson from the agency explaining what's going on. There's no slideshow with the narratives on it explaining what's going on or anything like that. It's just raw body cam footage. That happens sometimes. Sometimes agencies will release just the raw body cam footage to the news media and then have some little statement about, some minor details surrounding the incident, and then that's it. So this is something that's happened. They've released this footage out to the media, and the media's put it out to the public. I don't have any other details about this incident. I'm not even sure what year it had occurred, or even the circumstances behind it, why they ended up chasing this guy. But they chased the guy, of course, had a gun, shot at the police, and they shot at him. I'm going to play the video in its entirety since it's only 6 minutes long. And I'll do that without any interruptions. And then I'll just go back and hit rewind, talk about things that are going on to better explain what's going on, and talk about things that I think that were done right and or done wrong. So without further ado, here we go. There's nothing wrong with your audio. This is the buffer mode on an Axon body camera. So here in the next probably 15 seconds, you will hear the audio kick in. And looking at the timestamp on this, this occurred in April of 2021.
Get on the ground! He's shot. He's still up, man!
He's fine. I'm behind you.
He shot him, man.
Where are you? Where are you hit? Don't move, Drew.
10-point suspect is down behind the cover. Shot in your head. We will approach in just a minute.
Drew, are you hit?
I don't think so.
Alright, let me look at you fast.
Oh, I think I'm hit. I need my rifle. Cover me, cover me.
Shop Davos at income 555 International Park, Cross Street, Enterprise Court, Contact Channel 3, Truck 12, Battalion 1, Medic 5. One thing in front of us, watch your fire!
We're coming around. No, he's gonna move this way.
You okay?
I think I'm okay.
Are you hit?
I don't think so.
Someone shall move around to the right. Move to the left.
I can't see his hands! I can't see his hands!
Does anybody have a shield back in 25?
I got the shield! Hold on, cover me from there.
I got the shield.
Oh, we got the shield up here.
You may carry it, you go carry it.
We got one.
I don't have a taser.
Here, you want mine?
No, fuck it.
Here.
Just in case.
You ready? Yep.
This side.
Drew, well, move to your left. You're going to go behind. Go behind you. Connex.
Zeb, you gotta step, okay?
You get behind going.
Careful, careful. He's still alive. He's still
Now we'll
looking. He's still breathing. He's still looking. Careful. He's got the. Hey.
Come on. Back it up. Back it up.
He's still conscious. He's still looking.
Hold on. Hey, decide who's talking.
Put your gun up.
Decide who's talking. Falsetto.
I'm sorry.
Decide who's talking.
You're talking, okay?
Drew, as soon as we get up there, you're going to give commands.
I'm giving it.
All right, you're giving commands.
All right.
Bitch, you have empty hands. You are hands off. Well, on you.
Ready?
That's it. The gun's right there.
Work around back.
Work around.
All right.
Don't move, Mario. Don't move, bud. We're trying to help you, okay? Trying to help you. Do not move. What are we gonna do with this bottom line?
Hands on.
Yeah, it's going to be in his right hand. Hands off.
Guns in his right hand.
Right here.
Guns in his right hand.
Go. Guns in his right hand.
Pull up.
All right, go ahead.
Pull up. Press. Keep the press. Got his right hand.
Release it.
Watch that right hand, guys. Watch that right hand.
I got his hand. I got his arm.
Hey, search him real quick. Search him.
Leave him up. How many times he shot? Hey, let's go ahead and get a trauma kit, y'all. Somebody that's got a guard down here. Trauma kit.
Trauma kit now.
Okay, 911, go ahead. Send these out there. One vehicle in there.
Yeah, 4.
Okay, let's get back into it.
One vehicle.
So again, as I said, I'm not sure what the circumstances are behind this incident. They are at a park. There are multiple officers there, so it makes me think that they got some kind of call in regards to this person, because you see a cruiser right over there, and then there's another one right there, and then there's one right there, and a female deputy going this way, and then you see this guy come out here. So, they could have been searching for him in relation to some type of incident. I don't know what's going on, but obviously this guy is running from the police for some reason. Now, this officer who's driving has his taser, and he points it out the window.
Get on the ground.
So he he points the taser out the window at him. Now, it's daytime. It's hard to see in the camera. I don't know with his human eye if he is able to actually see the laser dot or not. But this is kind of a rather unorthodox taser firing platform. I most certainly would not totally suggest or recommend trying to operate a motor vehicle and pointing taser out the window at someone and then trying to expect a successful deployment. It's just not very realistic in my opinion. He's chasing him, and dude turns around. He's got gun in his hand, and it happens very quickly.
Get on the ground.
See him bring his gun up. He's not even really aiming, to be honest. He's got like his forearm up. It looks like his dominant eye is occluded, or or obstructed rather, by his forearm, and so he may be aiming cross-eye dominant potentially at this point. Not really sure. At some point during this officer or deputy ended up firing his taser, because we end up seeing the taser wires later on. Suspect fires one round at the deputy. Not sure where that round went.
Get on the ground. Get on the ground. Get on the ground. Get on the ground.
All right. So pay attention to him shooting through the windshield. So you see multiple holes here. And it almost seems like there's only one hole here. It's hard to tell with the glare. So it looks very, although it's a tight group, it's not ideal. But it looks like he was able to send his second bullet, through that same hole. And that's kind of the key to being able to successfully shoot through the windshield of a vehicle. So windshields are made out of glass, laminate glass. And anytime you fire a projectile through it, that windshield is going to have an effect on the trajectory of that bullet. So, and there's really no set rule on it. It can either go up, down, to the side, whatever. Just know that it is going to cause the trajectory to deviate in some way. The closer that you are to your target, the less, let's see, what's the best way to word this? So let's, using this vehicle for example, so from windshield to hood of car, there's going to be less noticeable deviation. There's still going to be deviation. There's going to be less noticeable. The further that target moves out, the more that deviation becomes extremely noticeable. And it doesn't take too far of a distance from front of vehicle to where that deviation becomes detrimental and you're not even getting anywhere near your target. So you can take your best marksman ever, set up beanbag within the vehicle, have good, great, stable platform, follow through with the greatest front sight focus and trigger control, and like I said, top shot of the world, and still that bullet is not going to hit bullseye. It's not going to hit where you're aiming at. It's going to go somewhere, to the left, right, up, down, anywhere but where you're wanting it to go. Now that second shot that you fire, so long as it's able to go through that hole, then you have a higher chance of being able to hit your target. So the idea of shooting through windshield is, once you make that hole, continue to try and fire through that hole to make it bigger and decrease the chances of that bullet being touched by any of that glass, laminate glass, and causing your round to deflect in some way. And that kind of looks like what went on here. He fired that first round, nothing happened. As soon as he fired that second round, it looks like, from this angle and the lighting and everything, that it went through the same hole, and he made hit on that guy, and that guy went down. Now, it's also possible that the first few rounds that he fired hit the guy, and he was still moving, but then finally dropped. That happens sometimes, even with hunters, shooting deer and stuff, that deer will get hit and then it will trot off to, a little distance. It may make a pretty good distance. It may go 100 yards. It may go 15 feet, 7 feet, 25 feet, whatever, and then drop. Same things can happen to humans. So he could have very well been shot from those first few rounds and went down, but just from the visual of it, him firing that first round right here and then that second round, it looked like, that was when he made hits with his round. So, firing through the windshield, it can be done, but it's not very optimal. It's really last-ditch effort, and this kind of is almost last-ditch effort for him. He is confined in this box, so to speak. It's hard for him to make a very quick egress or anything like that out of the vehicle. So, you may have to end up fighting from within the vehicle, and then once, the threat has gone down or it's safe to do so, then you can make that dismount from the vehicle and take better cover. But all in all, I don't fully advocate firing through the windshield. It's just not always the best in terms of accuracy, and they're in a park. So, beyond this distance over here are vehicles. Who knows if these vehicles are occupied? And I can't see very well what's past this tree line, but it seems to be more park area. Those bullets could fly and hit an innocent bystander. In more rural areas, I'd say that's probably better options right there. Less collateral damage, so to speak. But, even then, even in an urban environment, I hate to say, it is what it is, but that's kind of what it is. It is what it is. In an instance like this where, he is so close to him, or he was so close to him at the front of the vehicle, one good option would have just been smash the accelerator and run his fucking ass over. And in fact, that's something I teach in vehicle tactics class is if your vehicle's on, still in drive and has the ability to go forward, hasn't been damaged too much or anything like that, the target's close enough, instead of trying to shoot through the windshield at them, run them over. V6, V8, 4-cylinder, whatever, I don't care what the hell it is, it's going to outperform 9mm 40, 45. The weight of that vehicle, its mass, it is going to cause significant damage to that person, and is going to cause very likely incapacitating damage to them, and it will stop them. So he bails out of the vehicle. Don't know what causes him to go to the ground. He may have purposely made himself go to the ground, or he might have fallen. But he gets to the rear of his vehicle, and he takes a prone position and gets his gun aimed at the target. So I like how he is proning himself out to get more accurate shots at a little bit more of a distance there. The guy is not like, football fields away from him, but in terms of pistol, he's a pretty good distance away for pistol. And so I like how he's proning himself out to make him a more stable firing platform here, and utilizing the vehicle tires and whatnot as cover. He goes to get up. I don't know what his body frame is like or anything like that. He must have decided that the safest way for him to get up off the ground would be to let go of the gun, let it sit there, use both hands to push himself up, and then retrieve the gun. I don't have anything negative to say about that, but I would say that this is something that you should maybe practice doing, getting that feel for being on your belly in a prone position and having a handgun, and then having to get up with a gun still in your hand. So that's a different experience. That's when most people are on the ground, they're so used to using both hands to get up, they may not know how to maneuver their body in a way to be able to get up using just one hand because the other hand is occupied with something. So this is something I would say that you can definitely do on the range on yourself, or even at home with an unloaded gun or a training gun. Get on the ground and practice getting up with one hand being full.
Oh! There's so good, man.
He's fine. I'm behind you.
He shot me, man.
Where are you? Where are you hit?
76, the corner suspect down.
Don't move. Where are you hit? I'm behind you. Where are you hit?
Oh!
Get on the ground. He shot.
Where are you hit?
Oh!
There's so good, man.
He's fine. I'm behind you.
He shot me, man.
Where are you? He's fine. I'm behind you.
He shot me, man.
Where are you? Where are you hit?
76, the corner suspect down.
Don't move, Drew.
10-point suspect is down. We have you covered.
So there you can see the taser wires. Hearing him talk, looking at his arms, you can see the goosebumps on there. And you can see a little bit of a shake. This guy is definitely experiencing the physiological changes that occur during fight or flight. I don't know, obviously, what his heart rate is, but it is probably pretty fucking high. And the higher your heart rate is, the closer you can get to go into, I don't want to say blackout mode, but I forget the terminology for it. This is the problem with getting older. Your memory turns to crap. It's explained very well in Lieutenant Dave Grossman's book on killing, and it talks about the physiological changes that occur, and when the heart rate goes so high, it goes in your brain can go into black mode. I can't, like I said, I can't remember if I'm using that correct terminology or not. But the higher the heart rate, the closer you are to being in a state of mind that is not very efficient. So when you think about forebrain and midbrain, midbrain is within all animals. It's monkey brain, it's puppy brain, whatever. Forebrain is primarily it's human. It is what makes humans distinctly different from the chimpanzees. Your forebrain is what gives us Picassos and Leonardos and all those. And so in the fight, your forebrain starts to shut down a little bit and midbrain takes over. And there is a correlation between higher heart rates and which one is a little bit more dominant. So higher heart rate, start going in the black mode, and your midbrain is way more dominant than forebrain. And the way we can get those heart rates down is with force on force training, stress inoculation, tricking your mind and body, so to speak, into making it think that it's been through this before. And that is the beauty of force on force, is you can get as close to the real thing as possible, and it still be able to have such a valuable training value that you can get a person, like I said, as close to the real thing as possible, and it stress inoculates them to the extent that when the people who've gone through this training and have actually had to get into a deadly physical force encounter, their performance is exceptionally well compared to those who have had very minimal force-on-force training or no force-on-force training at all. And if you've watched these kind of videos long enough, you can see differences in how people react to stuff. There are some people who are freaking as cool as the other side of a pillow, and then there are people who are a hot mess freaking the fuck out. And a lot of that, in my opinion, has a lot to do with their training, if they've had good force-on-force training or not, and then also, what's in them, right? Like, do they have that fight in them? Because not everyone has that fight in them. I mean, you can take people and you can put them through the classes, and they can, it's pass or fail as long as they meet those minimum requirements, and they can pass all that stuff. But if they ain't got it in them, then they just ain't got it in them. And although I think there are some instances where that's the case, it just ain't in them to fight. A lot of other ones, I think it does have a lot to do with boiling down to reality-based training scenarios. Some have had enough of it. Well, I wouldn't say enough. Some have had a sufficient, good amount of it, and then others, I think, have probably not had a whole lot.
Don't move, Drew.
10 points, suspect is down. We have you covered.
So one thing I would like to see at this point, now that there's other people there, is for him to do a reload. So he has expended some rounds during this fight. I don't know off the top of my head how many he's fired. I can go back and hit replay and count the shots and be able to tell you how many he fired. But I mean, that's one of the beauties of watching these videos. You can go back and instantly see how many rounds were fired. In the moment, you have no idea how many rounds you fired. Even if you try to practice doing that stuff on the range, and some people try to advocate for this. You should practice counting your rounds. That way you'll know how many rounds you fire in a gunfight. One, I think that's complete bullshit. But there's no good way to know how many rounds you fired. There's been many instances where people have fired just 2 or 3 rounds, and they think that they only fired 1 round, or they think they fired more rounds than what they did, or they're just not sure exactly how many they fired, and they get it within a couple rounds of being on or off that right count. So. And the problem, and that has to do with how your midbrain starts to take a more dominant role in the fight, and your forebrain starts to kind of go to the back seat a little bit. So, even if you are able to practice this well on a shooting range, on a flat range, and not doing anything reality-based training-wise, it does not mean that that's going to be something you're going to be able to do in the fight. Because that's a whole nother game right there between forebrain and midbrain. So since you can't very reliably count on being able to count how many rounds you fired, the best response is once you've fought and you've assessed and scanned the target, you can go ahead and top off that gun. That way, if there's more fighting to be had, well, now you get to start round 2 with a fresh mag versus a partially depleted mag. And it would be a whole lot better to start round 2 off with a full mag versus a partially depleted mag, because you could finish off the rest of that mag and then have to do an emergency reload from slide stop. And that's not the best time to want to do a reload in the middle of a gunfight when your damn slide has locked open on you. So anytime opportunity presents itself to do a reload, do a reload.
Charlie, you're there. We will approach in just a minute.
Drew, are you hit?
I don't think so.
All right, let me look at you fast.
Oh, I think I'm hit. I need my rifle. Cover me.
So you can see that, he's, in my opinion, he's starting to gain, or his forebrain's starting to come, back in a position where it needs to be. He's able to speak a little bit more clearly, and now he's thinking about getting this rifle out, and he's making the right move at this point. He's getting that rifle. Rifle cartridges well outperform pistol cartridges any day of the week. And if you're going to a gunfight, bring a rifle. Bring all your friends with a rifle. So he's got the right mindset here of putting his pistol away and going straight to his rifle.
Backward, pass, incoming 555. International car, cross street.
Now the issue that has come into play here is crossfire. So there's officers over here, and then there's officers obviously over here with him where they're at right now.
Enterprise course, contact channel 3. Truck 12, Battalion 1, Medic 5. They're standing in front of us, watch your crossfire!
We're coming around. Somebody this way.
Horrible crossfire moment right here. Whew, talk about a hairy situation. So if this guy in this moment decided to roll over and start shooting at someone, this officer would have likely deployed some rounds. This guy over here likely would have deployed some rounds. I think there's a guy right over in here. He likely would have deployed rounds, and these guys who are over here would have deployed rounds, and then the people who are kind of rear to this vehicle and off to the side a little bit, they would have deployed rounds. These guys are directly right across from each other, and so if a round would hit the missed, this guy hit the ground and ricochet, then there's potential for those ricochets to come towards each other, and that's not a good situation to be in. You want to minimize the instances of friendly fire as much as possible, because friendly fire is not friendly. You can hear them yelling in the background. It's a little bit indistinguishable what they're saying, but they're trying to coordinate their positioning. You did hear them a little bit before this talking about crossfire on the radio, so at least they're cognizant of the fact that there is crossfire issues and they need to remedy that somehow. But I think it would have been better if there could have been, for sure, with no doubt whatsoever, someone in charge of all them and calling out stuff, because it does end up seeming like there's, I don't want to say a power struggle, but it does seem like maybe there's more chiefs than enough Indians, so to speak. So this does take a little bit longer than desirable.
I got the shield.
Now that clunk you heard, he just dropped his rifle to the ground. Now I don't have a problem with dropping guns on the ground, so long as they're of good quality and whatnot. Dropping a gun on the ground shouldn't cause any problems for it. They're not made out of glass. You can take a hammer and a screwdriver and drop it to the ground. It's still going to perform its job. Same with a gun. It's made out of metal. So you should be able to drop your gun on the ground, pick it back up, and it continue to work. And your accessories that are on that gun should be able to hit the ground and be able to continue to work after that. So I don't have an issue with his rifle hitting the ground per se. But I do have an issue with the fact that he's gotten this rifle. He's not properly utilizing the sling. So you don't want to be unnecessarily just dropping your rifle or handgun on the ground. It's not conducive for anything. And although like I said, things of quality they should be able to still work, there's also that off chance that something could break when falling, and you just don't want to take those risks. So good proper utilization of the sling would have prevented him from having to drop that rifle on the ground. He might not have just purposely just plop that damn thing on the ground. He could have tried to lean it up against the vehicle, and then it just kind of slid off to the side and fell. But again, like I said, that's improper utilization of a sling, or a lack thereof. And you actually see this quite a bit in a lot of these videos. I just don't think that the training, for the most part, is done in depth enough to require the use of slinging that rifle. And not all classes are the same. So there are some classes out there that are labeled as rifle classes, and the drills and whatnot are pretty limited and whatnot. And so you can see classes that there wouldn't be a whole lot of use of officers or students utilizing the sling. And I think a good rifle class should require the sling to be used throughout the entire damn class. Even when you're not on the line, you're doing reloading, whatever, instead of using a rifle rack at a range and propping that rifle in it or laying it on the table, I think that the instructor should be forcing everyone to go ahead and sling that rifle. That way they get used to slinging that rifle, and it becomes a little bit more second nature to them to want to sling that rifle versus trying to lay it down on something. Because if you're always laying the damn thing down or leaning up against something, then you're always going to do that. And so that's a training scar, just the same as if you are doing stuff, with handgun training. You don't want to repeatedly, for example, doing reloads. A lot of people at the range will, when they want to go do a reload, they'll eject the magazine out of the gun and grab it and then lay it on the table and then pick up a new magazine and put it in the gun. If you do that multiple times over and over and over and over, that becomes muscle memory to you. And if the shit ever hit the fan and you had to use force, then you could find yourself doing that. Just like the story of the California Highway Patrol guys back in the 70s who got into a gunfight. Their training at the range, they had always, after firing their rounds out of the revolver, they would open the cylinder, eject the brass into their hand, and then pocket the brass in their clothing and then do a reload. And they did that because they didn't want to spend a whole lot of time being bent over picking up brass at the end of the training. They just dump the brass in their hand, put it in the pocket, do a reload, and keep on going. That way, in the class, they just empty their pocket and dump all the brass in a bucket. Well, gunfight happened, and these guys ended up dying in the line of duty, and they found a couple of them with brass in their pockets and empty guns. And so they got shot in the middle of doing a fucking reload. And they were taking their time putting that damn brass in their pocket when they should have just been letting it hit the ground. And that's a training scar. So, if in a rifle class, people are always, at the end of a string of fire, putting a rifle down on the table or leaning up in a rifle rack or something like that, that's developing training scars, in my opinion. And you should always be utilizing that sling in a rifle class, because you're not going to have a fucking table out during the middle of a gunfight to lay your damn rifle on. You're going to have to sling that damn thing.
I got skill.
So he does finally reload his pistol.
You okay? No, fuck it. Just in case.
Yep.
So, I've said this before. I don't think that shields are properly utilized the way that they should be. And it can be extremely difficult for the person on the shield to be utilizing a rifle at this point. So when you think about it, his sight is blocked by this shield right here. And the rifle isn't even pointed at the guy. It's pointed down towards this way. This is why you typically will always see a person with a shield utilizing a pistol. And then they can get their hand out there in front of that shield and look through the sights through the viewfinder of this shield. That way, the only thing's exposed is their gun hand. And even though that's exposed, it still allows you to aim your gun at the target and shoot the damn target. Right now, they're approaching, and he don't have good cover on this target whatsoever.
You're in the road. Move to your left. You're going to go behind. Go behind you. Connex.
Zeb, you gotta step, okay?
Get behind going.
Careful, Ken.
And so now he is given cover with his pistol, but what does that mean that he's doing? That means he's leaning further out behind this shield. And I've seen a lot of videos where you'll see a person behind a shield, and then like a wedge formation, there's a bunch of people. One will be stacked here, one will be stacked there, one will be stacked there. And so eventually after the the third person, they're all exposed. No one's behind a damn shield except the person holding the shield. I like shields, and I like how they can be utilized, but they can't be 100% utilized for every single thing. And this is one of these things I just don't think that shields are utilized correctly for.
He's still alive. He's still looking. He's still breathing. He's still looking. Careful. He's got the. Hey.
So we still have crossfire issues here.
Come on. Back it up. Back it up.
He's still conscious. He's still looking.
Hold on. Hey, decide who's talking.
Mitch, put your gun up.
Decide who's talking. Fawcett.
I'm sorry.
Decide who's talking to.
You're talking, okay?
Drew, as soon as we get up there, you're going to give command.
I'm giving it.
All right, you're giving command.
All right.
Mitch, you have empty hands. You are hands on.
So I like how they were coordinating the arrest team there. They're identifying who's going to be talking, and that's an important aspect. Always having one person giving those verbal commands versus 5 people giving verbal commands, because not all 5 people are going to be giving the exact same verbal command or using the exact same wording. And so when you got 5 people yelling different things, or they're yelling things that are kind of similar but they're just worded differently, then you can have some unwanted results out of that. So it's always best to have one person giving those verbal commands.
Well, on you.
All ready?
And so again now, now you can see him utilizing his sights, but now the shield has completely shifted and is more to the left. So they're more or less more exposed than what they would like to be. And so I think something like this, the way they're positioned, the shield is useless at this point. Just the way they're so exposed at this point. Also, approaching from this end, where his front body is facing this direction and the gun is under him, this makes it easier for him to just make a very minor movement and then start sending rounds towards these officers. I think it would have been better if they would have continued to circle all the way around and completely approach from this guy's back. Now they do, in a way, make a circle on him, but they're too close, in my opinion, when they're making this circle. I think it would have been better if the further away they would have circled all the way around towards here and then came straight in towards his back.
Work around.
All right. Don't move, Mario. Don't move, bud. We're trying to help you, okay? Trying to help you. Do not move. What are we going to do with this bottom line?
Hands on.
Yeah, it's going to be in his right hand. Hands on.
Guns in his right hand.
Right here.
Guns in his right hand.
Go.
So they're identifying the guns in his right hand. At this point, I think it would have been better if they could have started giving him some verbal commands to show his hands, raise his hands up above his head, stretch his arms out, what have you. And if he would have failed to follow those commands, and then I think it would have been appropriate to go ahead and fire a taser into his back to either A, gain compliance, or B, be able to arrest under power. So, if you fire taser into someone and you get good probe placement, you achieve NMI, they're not going to be able to control their limbs any. And while they're under a cycle of a taser, they're not going to be able to do anything or control their limbs. And that would be the best time to go up and get a hold of this dude's limbs and get them behind him and cuff them. Because at this point, he could even though he's got, we see 3 guns right now pointed at him. I'm sure he's got more pointed at him. Even though he's got guns pointed at him, he could still very quickly turn and shoot. And generally, action beats reaction. So if you've ever played the game where you hold both your hands out and the palms are facing down, and then someone across from you sticks their hands out and their palms are facing up, so your palms are, practically touching each other. The one with his hands under yours, if his objective is to pull his hands out really quick and slap the top of your hand, the majority of the time he's going to be able to pull his hands out and slap the top of your hands before you are able to jerk your hands back away from him to prevent him from doing it. And that's action versus reaction. And like I said, generally action beats reaction. So he could have, even though he would have ended up completely dying from it, he could have still very easily, with his gun in his hand, tilted just enough and then shot this officer right in the face. Now that, of course, would have been his death warrant, so to speak. Them being so close, they would have lit his ass up like a Christmas tree. But still, he could have very easily taken one of them out with him. And so that's why I think that an approach like this, it would be more appropriate and safer to go ahead and fire a taser into someone to be able to take better control out of them and arrest under power. Or gain compliance out of them using other less lethal options, a beanbag, a launcher, pepper ball, something like that. Try to get them to raise those hands above their head and have them spread out, or to crawl away from the gun, what have you, and then make an approach. If not doing that, then I definitely think that they got their hands under them and they still got a gun. Then firing a taser into them, achieving NMI and arresting under power is the safer option, because this is way, way, way too risky.
Guns in his right hand.
Alright, go ahead. Press, keep the breath. Guns right hand. Release it.
Watch that right hand, guys. Watch that right hand.
And so now, with both these guys right here and him not being fully under control, this guy could start fighting at this moment. And now there's not any great lethal coverage on them or on the suspect. All the lethal cover is behind these guys. So I think that some better positioning for the person with lethal cover would have been better. So someone could have come to the top of the head and just aimed straight down into his dome. And the minute he started fighting and resisting, and it came to that moment to have to use deadly physical force, then they'd have an unobstructed line of view to be able to fire. Because right now, if the fight happens and he's able to fire a round off and these 2 guys are still in the way, there's no way this guy with the rifle or this guy with the pistol are going to be able to shoot this dude, because these 2 officers are fucking right there in front of them.
I got it now.
Hey, search him real quick. Search him.
Move him up.
So you hear someone saying, search him. And although all he's wearing is shorts, and you see a gun laying out, it doesn't mean he doesn't have another weapon on him. So a good rule of thumb is, if you find 1 gun on a person, then chances are they got 2 guns. And you should assume that they got 2 guns. They got more than just 1. So go ahead and do a good, proper pat down on someone, even if they've got the most minimalist amount of clothing, because you never know. He could have another gun tucked into his waistline or something like that.
Hey, search him real quick. Search him.
So he's not moving any, but earlier while they were moving around, they were saying that they could see him looking around, that he was conscious and everything. So it makes me wonder if one of this officer's rounds ended up hitting this guy in the spine somewhere and ended up paralyzing him. I don't know that for sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if that happened, because that does happen from time to time. Sometimes a round will hit the spinal cord and they'll drop like a sack, and they won't be able to obviously move or do anything because they're paralyzed. So I think that's a possibility. I just don't know for sure. And like I said, I don't know all the details about this case. I don't even know in the aftermath of anything happening.
Lift him up, 100,000 shot. Hey, let's go ahead and get a trauma kit, y'all. Somebody that's got a guard down here. Trauma kit.
Trauma kit now.
And so, looking at these officers, looks like pistol maybe. Pistol.
Hey, let's go ahead and get a trauma kit, y'all. Somebody that's got a guard down here.
All them pistols. He had a rifle.
Trauma kit.
And then
Trauma kit now.
these two with rifles. So, you know, they all weren't there when this shooting happened. They might have been in the area, but they all were not right there when that shooting happened. And so they ended up showing up after the shots had been fired. And out of all those officers, only 2 showing up with rifles. I think that's a problem. If you know you're going to a gunfight, bring a rifle and bring your friends with rifles. Rifles will always outperform pistols. And those officers who chose to get rifles have a better mindset than the others who decided to go at this with just their pistols. Now, if those officers didn't have rifles in their vehicle, that's one thing. And that is a possibility, because sometimes not all officers have rifles in their cars, and that's a mindset problem with the administration. You know, people can complain about budgets and stuff all they want, but you know, if you can't, even if the agency can't afford to put a rifle in a vehicle, they can most definitely afford to put a simple Remington 870 shotgun in the vehicle, or allow an officer to be able to purchase their own and carry it around in the vehicle. Lots of agencies do that. They allow officers to have their own pistols, have their own rifles and whatnot. And so if an agency is just so cash-strapped that they can't afford stuff, then that should be something they should allow those officers to do, to be able to have the most amount of protection as possible. But, you know, this day and age, even your most cash-strapped podunk agency can still qualify for a federal grant, Homeland Security grant, and be able to get rifles out of that. So that's just a poor leadership, in my opinion. If you've got agencies out there with officers riding around with no rifles, that's on the administrator of that agency, and they just need to get with the times, and they need to change their mindset, because they've got the wrong mindset if they're not equipping their rifles or equipping their officers with patrol rifles. Unfortunately, there are a bunch of administrators out there who should not be in their position as a chief law enforcement officer, whether that's a chief of a city agency or even a sheriff. There's some people in those positions who should not be in those positions, and unfortunately, those types who shouldn't be in those positions, sometimes you see those agencies, they don't have proper equipment because the person in that position is a dum-dum. Not much else to say about this video. Could go into the medical stuff, but I'll forego that one on this one. If you like what you hear and see, go ahead and give me a like and a share. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more Monday quarterback videos. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching.